All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing we're going to start with is looking at the folded paper we did. So this is very similar to what we did with the small cube. We're going to do it for the large cube. This length right here is 12. It stays the same when I fold it in half, but the long side changes to 6. This long side still stays 6. This longest side still stays 12. We know half of 6 gives me 3. And then this would be a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so the slanted part would have to be 3 square root 2. Okay? Then we move on. We know right here that this would have to be 6 square root 2, 6 square root 2, and 6. Because if this length is 3 square root 2, this length is 3 square root 2, and if we add them together, we get 6 square root 2. Okay? This little side, we folded up this part up to here. Well, I know half of that. 6 square root 2 is 3 square root 2, so that's 3 square root 2 and 6 square root 2. And when I fold it in, we get it looking like this. Now we're going to do the same thing with x. This is the more important part, but some of you had trouble getting here. That's okay. We've got x. We've got x over 2 when we fold it in half. We've got x over 4 when we've got half of the half, and x square root 2 over 4 would be the slanted part. We get x square root 2 over 2 when we add x square root 2 over 4 plus x square root 2 over 4. So this part on the bottom is x square root 2 over 2. This part on the top is x square root 2 over 4. So we've got x square root of 2 over 2 and x over 4. Any questions? You feel pretty comfortable with this stuff? No? Do you feel better when it's with the number? Some of you are saying no still. You guys, it's just remembering that when you have those 45, 45, 90 triangles, if you can get that part, the rest of it should come. And if you're getting the numbers but not the letters, we will get to the point where it'll be easier for the letters, okay? Where you can use the numbers in order to get you there. All right, I'm turning to the next page that you guys worked on. Okay, the first question here is that here's one side of your big cube. What is the surface area of one face? Include the open space if your original paper was 12 centimeters on one side or x on one side. Okay, so I went back to look at this, and I knew the length of this was 6 square root 2. So I knew the length of this was 6 square root 2, right? Because I'm just looking at my paper from the previous paper. So I know 6 square root 2 times 6 square root 2 is 6 times 6 is 36. Square root 2 times square root 2 square root 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So 36 times 2 gives me 72. And then I looked at my bottom section where it said x square root 2 over 2 times x square root 2 over 2. And I found that it gave me 1/2 x centimeters squared. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, x squared. 1/2 x squared centimeters squared. All right, let's look at 2. We want the total surface area of the big cube, including the space. So we just counted how many sides we had, right? We had 6 sides. So I took 72 times 6. This is why it might have helped to actually pull out the big cube just to count how many sides you had. Then I took 1/2 x squared times 6 and got 3x squared. So some of you, I think, you know, if you were looking at this page and having trouble with the x part of it, this would have been that. Half of this would have been really difficult, but you probably could have done the number half. Okay. 3, we want to find the surface area of the inner cube. If your original paper was 12 sides, we got 3 square root 2, 3 square root 2, times it together got 18. X square root 2 over 4, x squared is 2 over 4, gave us x squared over 8. We want the total surface area of the inner cube if your original paper was 12 centimeters on a side. So we've got 18 times 6 gives us 108 centimeters squared. X squared over 8 times 6 gives us 3/4 x squared centimeters squared. So we had to pull out our smaller cube as well in order to do this. You guys ready? I'm going to turn it over. You need another second? Now we're just finding a ratio. All I did is put the large cube over the small cube and found that the ratio was 4 to 1. That's it. It's just using information that you got from the front. The next is to use the volume. We know the volume is length times width times height. So we did 3 square root 2 times 3 square root 2 times 3 square root 2 and got 54 square root 2. Okay. We did the same thing with x. We times the 3 of them together and got x cubed over square root 2 over 32. So then we use the volume of the big cube. We multiplied them all together and got 432 square root 2. And then we had the ratio of the big over the little. And that's what we did over here too. And we got 8 for both of them. All right. And then we would have a square if we connected the midpoints. It'd be 6 times 6. We would get 36 centimeters squared. All right. Let's stop there for now. Any questions before I move on about the big cube and the little cube?